I've never been the kind of person to scare easily. I grew up in a rougher part of town. I've had my fair share of close calls with strangers, and I like to think of myself as someone who keeps a level head under pressure. But nothing in my life prepared me for what happened the night I realized someone had been inside my home, watching me for God knows how long. At the time, I was living alone in a 2-story rental house on the edge of the suburbs. It wasn't perfect, kind of old, drafty, and the landlord wasn't great about maintenance, but it was mine. After years of roommates, cramped apartments, and noisy neighbors, I finally had a space where I could breathe. I worked a 9-to-5, pretty average office job. I wasn't rolling in money, but I was comfortable. My daily routine was predictable. Wake up around 6:30, shower, coffee, commute, spend the day at work, come home, cook something simple, then either watch TV or read until I fell asleep. Weekends I'd meet with friends or go see my parents. Nothing crazy. Very normal. And that's the thing about horror. It waits for you in those quiet, comfortable moments when you think your life is safe and boring. It started small, in ways I brushed off at first. One Tuesday night, I was in the living room watching TV when I heard something faint from outside, like a soft scraping along the siding. It was winter, windy, so I figured it was a branch or maybe the old gutters. I muted the TV and listened. Nothing. When I turned the sound back on, the noise was gone. The next night, around the same time, I heard it again. Scraping, then tapping like fingernails against glass. I got up and checked the windows, feeling a little silly. Nothing there. Just the empty yard, the shadow of the trees swaying under the street lamp. I shook it off. But that Friday, something happened that I couldn't ignore. I'd gone upstairs early to read before bed. Around midnight, as I was dozing off, I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. This time, it was unmistakable. It was coming from the window beside my bed. I froze. My heart started pounding. My bedroom was on the second floor. There shouldn't have been anything or anyone tapping on that window. Slowly, I turned my head toward the sound. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But no, there was definitely something there. A shape, faint but real, on the other side of the glass. A face. Someone was standing on the roof over the porch, leaning against my window, just staring in. I jolted upright, fumbling for the lamp. And by the time the light came on, the face was gone. I ran to the window, pulled the curtain back, and saw nothing but the empty roof and the frozen yard below. I told myself it had to be a trick of the light. Maybe I'd been half dreaming. But deep down, I knew I had seen him. The following week, little things started happening inside the house. Things I couldn't explain. I'd come home from work and the back door would be unlocked, even though I was sure I'd locked it that morning. The window in the downstairs bathroom was cracked open one night when I swore I hadn't touched it in weeks. I kept second-guessing myself, blaming my own forgetfulness, until the night I walked into the kitchen and found muddy footprints on the floor. Not mine. They started at the back door and stopped right in the middle of the room, like whoever left them had stood there for a while. Just watching, I barely slept that night. I sat in the living room with every light on, baseball bat across my lap, jumping at every creak of the old house. By morning, nothing had happened, but I called the landlord anyway and demanded he change the locks. He grumbled, but came by later that day. For a while, things went back to normal. Or at least I convinced myself they had, but that false sense of security didn't last. One Thursday night, a few weeks later, I was in bed when I woke up to the sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming from downstairs. I froze, every muscle in my body tensing. My first thought was to grab my phone and call the police, but when I reached for it on the nightstand, it wasn't there. Panic surged through me. I always put it on the nightstand before bed. Always. I sat up slowly, scanning the dark room, and that's when I saw it. My phone, propped up against the lamp. The screen facing me. The camera app open. Someone had been in my room. Watching me sleep, my throat went dry. I didn't even have time to process it because the footsteps downstairs stopped. Silence pressed in from every corner. Then from the hallway just outside my bedroom door, I heard the faintest creak of the floorboards. Whoever was in my house was standing right outside my room. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But all I could do was sit there frozen, staring at the door as the handle began to turn. It didn't open all the way. Just a few inches. Enough for me to see the sliver of darkness beyond. Then it stopped. I don't know how long we sat like that, me on the bed, whoever it was on the other side of the door, neither of us moving. Finally, the door clicked shut again, soft but deliberate. I don't remember much after that. At some point, I must have passed out from exhaustion or shock because the next thing I knew, it was morning. The house was silent. No sign of anyone else. My phone was back on the nightstand like it had never been touched. I wanted to call the police, but what would I say? That I heard footsteps? That my phone moved? They'd think I was crazy. So I said nothing. Big mistake. 2 nights later, I woke up again. Not to footsteps this time, but to the sound of my closet door sliding open. I snapped on the light, heart hammering. The closet door was halfway open, swaying slightly. I grabbed the bat and crept over, yanking the door the rest of the way. Nothing. Just my clothes hanging in the dim light. But then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. On the floor, pushed all the way to the back, was a small pile of wrappers. Candy bars, granola bars, empty water bottles. Stuff I hadn't eaten. Someone had been hiding in my closet, living there. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the bat. My stomach twisted. My skin crawled. I checked every inch of the closet, the attic, under the bed, the crawl space, nothing. Whoever it was, they were gone. But the realization hit me like a freight train. It wasn't just a break-in. This person hadn't just been sneaking around at night. They'd been living in my house with me, watching me. After that, I couldn't stay there. I packed a bag and left, crashing on a friend's couch. The landlord didn't believe me, but I didn't care. I never went back. Sometimes, though, late at night, I'll wake up to the sound of faint tapping on the window. Just like before. And I can't help but wonder if I ever really got away. I never wanted to move back home. When my dad passed away, the old family house was left to me. It wasn't huge, but it was decent. A 2-story with a detached garage, a little garden out back, and a quiet neighborhood where most of the families had been around for decades. The catch was, I hadn't lived there since I was a teenager, and the place carried ghosts. Metaphorical ones, I thought. My dad had been a good man, but stern, and the house itself always gave me an uneasy feeling I could never put into words. Still, the mortgage was paid off, and financially it made sense. So I packed up my apartment and moved in. The first couple of weeks were, okay, lonely but manageable. The house creaked more than I remembered. Every draft sounded like a whisper, and the plumbing rattled like bones in the walls. But I told myself it was just an old house settling. Then I started hearing noises from above the garage. For context, the garage had an upstairs storage room, accessible only by a set of pull-down stairs. My dad used it for tools and junk he didn't want cluttering the main house. Growing up, I hated that room. It was always freezing cold, always smelled faintly of mildew, and I swore I could hear scratching in the walls when I was up there. Now, years later, I avoided it altogether. But about a month after moving in, I started hearing something up there at night. It wasn't the normal creaks and groans of an old house. This was deliberate. Slow thuds like footsteps, a dragging sound like something heavy being pulled across the floor, sometimes faint tapping. The first time, I actually laughed nervously and said out loud, "Guess I've got raccoons." But deep down, I didn't believe that. One night around 2 a.m., I was lying awake when the noise came again. Thud, drag, thud. I sat up, straining to hear, and realized it wasn't random. It was moving in a pattern. Back and forth, like someone pacing. The next morning, I grabbed a flashlight, pulled down the rickety stairs, and climbed up. The room was dusty, cluttered with old boxes, broken furniture, and my dad's rusted tools. Nothing looked disturbed. No droppings, no nest, no sign of animals. Just silence. I told myself I was being paranoid. I went back down, shut the stairs, and tried to forget about it, but the noises didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. Sometimes I'd hear something slam against the floor, hard enough to rattle the light fixtures in the garage. Other times, I'd hear what sounded like whispering, low, frantic, like two people talking just loud enough for me to know it was speech, but not loud enough to make out the words. Then one night, I woke to the sound of the pull-down stairs creaking open. I froze in bed, every nerve on fire. I could picture it in my head. The old wooden stairs lowering slowly, someone climbing down into the garage. But I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The next morning, I forced myself to check. The stairs were folded up, flush against the ceiling, just like always. I wanted to believe I'd dreamed it, except I found something in the kitchen that made my stomach turn. On the counter, right next to the coffee maker, was a greasy handprint. Smudged, like someone with dirty hands had pressed down while leaning there. I hadn't touched that counter since I'd cleaned it the day before. That's when I called the police. I told them I thought someone might be living in my garage loft. They came, did a full search, checked the upstairs storage room, the crawl space, everything. No one was there. No forced entry. No footprints. One of the officers chuckled and said, "Old houses make weird noises. You probably scared yourself." But when they left, the silence in the house felt suffocating. That night, I pushed a chair under my bedroom door handle and slept with a knife under my pillow. At 3 a.m., I woke up again. This time, not to footsteps, not to dragging, but to breathing. Heavy, labored, right on the other side of my bedroom door. I didn't move. Didn't even dare shift the sheets. I just lay there listening, praying the chair would hold. The breathing went on for what felt like forever. Then slowly it faded down the hall. When I finally worked up the courage to open the door in the morning, the chair was still in place. But the carpet outside had faint depressions. Like someone had been standing there for hours. I was losing my mind. The next day, I set up a cheap motion-activated camera in the garage, aimed right at the stairs. If anyone came down from that loft, I'd catch them. That night, the noises came back, pacing, dragging, a loud bang that shook the garage doors. I lay in bed, clutching my phone, staring at the ceiling. When I checked the footage in the morning, my stomach dropped. At 2:47 a.m., the camera caught the stairs lowering by themselves, slowly, no one visible. Then the frame shook, and the feed cut out. When it came back, the stairs were up again. I didn't sleep that night, or the one after. Finally, I snapped. I called a locksmith, changed every lock on the house and the garage, and nailed the loft stairs shut. I told myself whatever was up there, it couldn't get down now. For 2 nights, silence. Then on the third, I woke up to a sound that made my blood run cold. From inside the walls of my bedroom, soft, rhythmic tap, tap, tap. I pressed my ear against the drywall, heart racing. And I heard it, a voice, hoarse, muffled, but clear enough to understand. "Let me out." I moved out the next day. Haven't been back since. But sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I swear I can still hear it. Tap, 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 let me out. When I rented the place, the landlord warned me about the crawl space. "It's sealed," he said. "Don't bother with it. Just storage. Place is old, you know. Best to leave it alone." At the time, I didn't think much of it. The house was small but affordable, with just enough room for me and my dog, Max. It wasn't in the nicest neighborhood, but it was quiet, tucked between 2 other rental properties. The kind of house you live in while saving for something better. I moved in on a warm spring day, unpacked, cracked a beer, and felt good about the decision. But that feeling didn't last long. The first time I heard the noise, it was about a week later. I was lying in bed, Max curled at my feet, when I heard it. A soft thump from beneath the floor. The kind of sound you feel as much as hear. Max's head shot up immediately, ears perked, growling low. I told myself it was pipes or maybe a raccoon under the house. But the way Max stared at the floorboards, teeth bared, made me uneasy. The next night, the thumping came again, louder, longer. Max barked this time, claws scraping the hardwood as he ran circles around the room. I yelled to scare off whatever it was, stomped the floor, even went outside with a flashlight to check around the foundation. Nothing. I mentioned it to the landlord the next day. He just waved me off. "House is old. You'll hear noises." Don't worry about it, I wanted to believe him. But the noises didn't stop, they grew worse. It wasn't just thumping anymore. It was dragging, scraping, sometimes faint scratching, like fingernails clawing at the wood beneath me. Then came the whispering. The first time I heard it, I thought it was the TV. But when I muted the sound, it was still there, low, urgent murmurs rising from the floor. I couldn't make out the words, just the cadence, like someone muttering in frustration. I sat frozen on the couch, heart hammering, as Max barked at the floorboards. Finally, it stopped. I didn't sleep that night. By the 3rd week, I was unraveling. Every night, the noises came, growing bolder, closer. One night, while I was brushing my teeth, I heard a voice, clear this time. "Help me." I spat the toothpaste into the sink, staring at my reflection. My skin went cold. Max barked furiously from the living room, claws clicking against the floor. I ran out to him, and he was standing over the rug in the center of the room, hackles raised, barking down at the floor. That's when I noticed it. The rug had shifted slightly, revealing a square outline in the wood. A trapdoor, the crawl space. I froze. The landlord's words echoed in my head. It's sealed. But it wasn't. It was right there under my feet, hidden only by a rug. For hours, I sat in the chair across the room, staring at that square in the floor. At one point, I thought I saw it move. Like the wood flexed upward, just a fraction, as if something had pushed from below. I didn't sleep that night either. The next day, I bought a heavy padlock from the hardware store. I didn't even open the trap door. I just bolted it shut. For 2 nights, silence. Then on the third, the noises returned. Louder than ever. Thud, thud, scrape, then the padlock rattling, like someone was pulling from the other side. Max lost it, barking, growling, his body rigid with fear. I sat in the corner, clutching a kitchen knife, whispering over and over, "It's not real, it's not real, it's not real." At some point, the noises stopped. Exhausted, I passed out on the couch. When I woke up the next morning, the rug was back in place, perfectly centered. The padlock was still on, but the key was missing from where I'd left it on the counter. That night, I took Max and slept in my car. I should have left for good then. But something kept me tethered. Curiosity, maybe, or denial. I told myself I couldn't just abandon the lease, couldn't just walk away without proof. So I set up a camera. I positioned it in the living room, aimed at the trapdoor, and left it recording overnight. Max and I slept in the car again. The next morning, I checked the footage. At 2:14 a.m., the padlock snapped open by itself. The trapdoor lifted an inch, then slowly lowered again. For the next 3 hours, nothing. Then at 5:07 a.m., something happened that made my blood turn to ice. The rug moved, not like it had been pushed aside, but as if something beneath it was shifting, crawling just under the surface. A bulge rippled across the floorboards, circling the room before flattening again. Max whimpered and pawed at me as I watched. I couldn't finish the recording. I deleted it. I told myself I was done. I'd call the landlord, break the lease, whatever it took. I packed a bag, grabbed Max, and headed for the door. But when I reached for the knob, I stopped. The trapdoor was open. Just a crack, maybe 2 inches. Enough for the smell to hit me. Rot, damp earth, something foul and sweet all at once. Then, from the darkness below, a voice. My voice. Don't leave. I slammed the door behind me and never went back. The landlord kept my deposit. I didn't care, that was years ago. I've moved 3 times since. Different cities, different neighborhoods. But sometimes, late at night, I'll hear it again. Thud, scrape, whisper. Always faint, always below me. And when I check the floor, I swear I can see it. The faint outline of a trapdoor.